Hello, everybody. We are back, and I'm glad to be back. We went up to the cabin for a few days, and so that's where we have been, and it was a blast as always. But people always wonder what it's like to live off grid and to live off grid in Florida in the middle of summertime. So that is what I'm going to talk to you about today: is the way that we conserve our energy as much as we possibly can. So as I said, it's off-grid. We have a solar 5600-watt inverter. Then we have septic, we have well, and we have propane. So those are the four ways that we operate, if you will. And we don't use the propane very much at all. Just no reason to. And we try to conserve our energy as much as possible in the summertime. We live in Florida. It's 105-degree heat indexes or more with 98% humidity. You definitely are going to be concerned about how you're going to cool off. So, and everyone always is like, oh my God, that must be so cool. And yes, it is. And yes, I want to live there full time. I definitely do. I know everybody thinks I'm crazy, but I definitely do. However, from June, July, August, September, part of October, it is hot as heck up there. And dealing with that and still conserving, using your energy, but being able to use your energy wisely is something we have had to learn the hard way. So, how do you deal with the challenges of limited power and heat indexes, like I said, 100, 510 degrees in the summertime? And that's not just once in a while. That is literally every single day for months on end. And yeah, you kind of hope for a rain shower once in a while, but the problem with the rain shower is after the rain's gone, here comes the sun. Now it's even more humid and hot. I don't think most people realize how limited 5,600 watts of power is until you live in a situation where it is that hot out and or even that cold. Thank goodness we don't have the cold winters, but we could substitute, we have a pot-bellied stove that we could definitely, that would heat up the cabin all by itself. The cabin, by the way, the cabin itself is 500 square feet, so it's tiny, it's nice and small. And then we have a 500 square foot sleeping porch, thank God, that is also attached to it, but that is not heated or cooled. But that is also where the pot-bellied stove is, so in the wintertime, we go ahead and light that up, and that warms up the whole entire cabin, including the inside. So what is it like being up at the cabin at this time of year, as hot as it is? We're up about 6, give or take, and it depends on a couple different situations on what time actually we get up, but by 6. And we are out by 7 trying to beat the heat as much as possible. I turn everything off inside the cabin except for the refrigerator. So at that point in time, the fans even get turned off because the fans will suck 250 to 300 watts each. So the fans on the sleeping porch and the fan, which is 4 of them, and the fans inside, everything's turned off. Every light is turned off. The only power drain we have inside the cabin at that point is the refrigerator. The only other power drain we have at that point is the well pump. And of course, it kicks on and off, but on average, we're registering 100 to 150 watts roughly on the inverter control panel when I walk out that door. All the plastic screens that are on the sleeping porch have been rolled up, of course, as much as they can possibly go to allow as much air to flow through, and that's going to be on 3 sides. The south, the east, and the north side is where the rolled up window panels are at, and then the west side is where the cabin's at. You can see it in the pictures, but everything gets rolled up. We try to get as much air through there as possible. I open up every single door, open up every single window, anything I can possibly do to get more airflow through the cabin. I also have these really cool things. They're from a company called Bon Air, and I'll link it in the description, but these things are amazing. They're fans, and you're like, okay, Nick, they're fans, so what? And they go in the windows, but you can actually switch them. So you can have them blowing cool air in if it's cool outside and you're trying to cool off the inside, or you can have them blow hot air out. So before we walk out the door, I go ahead and turn on those and have them blow hot air out because it gets pretty warm in that cabin, especially by the end of the day. So these Bonaire fans run about 30 watts of power. That's it. And we can afford that on an average day. We can definitely afford that much power. And then they also can run off my All Powers R600 uh, solar bank as well if I need them to. I try to save that one for Tom's BiPAP machine, but we also have some Echo Flows and things like that. So we're set for all of those things just in case. But it definitely makes a huge difference having those fans sucking the air out. We take breaks about every hour at least. We go through about a case of water a day during the day. That's not including what we drink at night. During the day, we go through about a case of water. We sit on the porch when we take our breaks, and thank God there's that breeze. And pretty much every single day, there is a breeze, and it runs all day long until sunset. Once sunset comes, that breeze kind of dies down a little bit, unfortunately, because that's when you're trying to cool off. But it is what it is. But at least all day long, we can sit on that porch and have that breeze come through. I also take, this is another trick that I do, I take frozen bottles of water, ones that we've already had and consume the water of. I go ahead and put more water in them, put them in the fridge or freezer, and let them freeze. And I have a big bowl, and I put them into that big bowl with water and with washcloths. This way, those washcloths get super cold. And when you are out in that heat and you come in and you're trying to cool off, having those ice cold washcloths makes a huge difference on your head, back of your neck. It just helps so much. And I also keep extra frozen bottles. I have about 6 of them in the freezer. And the reason I have those is because if one of us happens to start feeling like we're getting some heat exhaustion, heat stroke, then you can put them on the pinpoint spots, back of the neck, the under the arms, and at the groin. And those are the areas that typically you would have someone place to try to cool you off at. So I have those as extras just in case. So I take solar showers. I think we've got 6 or 7 of them now. And I hang those up to begin heating up with the sun. I fill them up full of water, and you just hang them out and let the sun begin heating them up. And then I take the 400 feet that I have of garden hose, and I stretch that out. I go ahead and turn the water on, and I have a spray nozzle on it. I go ahead and spray it to get the water all the way through that 400 feet, and then I let it go, and I just let it sit there. The spray nozzle keeps it from running any further or any more, but that water is now all the way through that 400 feet of hose, which means it's now warming up as well. And then the other thing I do when we first get started is I set up my solar panels for all of the additional power banks that we have. We have several Echo Flows. We have a couple of All Powers power banks. So all of those get set up as well, just in case. You never know when you might need them. And like I said, I like to keep at least one in reserve for Tom's BiPAP machine. So all of those are getting their power at the same time that the solar panels are charging up the inverter for the house. I also always make sure I have I think I've shown this to y'all, I have a dual propane and gas generator, 3,600 watts. And I always make sure that that battery is charged as well. At least once a week, I take the All Power 600 and go ahead and charge that battery as well to make sure that it's always ready to go. We may pause lunchtime and try to eat something. Typically, it might be, if we do, it's a sandwich. It's something very, very light. We're not looking to eat a whole lot because it's too darn hot at that point. We are both dripping. It's so hot. and we usually quit work about 3 p.m. I think if we were up there full time, we'd probably stop work at like before lunch and then rest and cool off and do other things inside until about 5 p.m. when the sun was starting to kind of get past its zenith and it was cooling down a little bit, and then we could do a couple more hours of work. I start bringing everything in, the solar panel banks, or, yeah, solar power banks. I start folding all of that stuff up. I bring the solar showers in. I usually leave one by the hose for a reason, which I'm going to tell you in a second. So Tom usually takes a shower outside with the hose. Now you know why I stretched it all out, because we're on well water. The well is ice cold. And yeah, you'd think ice cold feels really good, but this is super, super, super cold. For those of you who also have wells, you know what I'm talking about. So by having the hose, he can go ahead and wash off, and the cool breeze from the wind hopefully can cool him off while he's showering and doing everything. And we've both learned to shower very, very quickly while we're up at the cabin. You rinse, get yourself wet, you wash everything, and then you rinse it all off. And that's pretty much how you do a shower up there. If the 400 feet of water is not enough for whatever reason, then I do have the extra solar showers that he has a hook that he can hang it on and use that as well. So I take a shower inside in our actual shower. However, I also use one of or more, depending on how gunky we got that day, of the solar showers. And the reason we do have a water heater, but again, I am trying to use zero power throughout the day. And the reason why I use the solar shower and why Tom uses the solar shower and the hose that already has 400 feet of water in it is because we're trying not to have that well pump kick in any more than it has to. Because once again, that's power that's disappearing that we need later that night. I've even heated water up on the stove in all of my pots, every single one of them. I had 5 pots going because we use propane. And we've used that to shower with before when we couldn't get water that was hot from the solar. Perhaps there was, the sun wasn't really doing well that day. And in the wintertime, we will do that as well. We will actually heat up water on the stove and use it that way. We're both now clean and we feel much better. And so we go out and we sit on the porch. And sometimes this is, if we're not getting much of a breeze, this is where I will go ahead and turn on one of the fans out on the porch, on the sleeping porch. So there we are. We're sitting out on the porch. Typically we've eaten and we're all just kind of relaxing and trying to cool off, and we're exhausted. And we try to wait until about 8 p.m. before we begin using any power. So we close all the windows and the doors, and we leave the sleeping porch open because it's not going to hurt anything. And we go ahead and I turn on the air conditioner at that point. We've waited all day for this, so we're like excited that I get to turn on the air conditioner. So this time with those fans I was telling you about, those Bon Airs, I had been sucking hot air out all day. Typically when we go in, the bedroom is the hottest place in the cabin, and it's usually close to 100 degrees in there when we start closing everything down and I get ready to turn the air on. And this time it was like 84 to 87 degrees, so that's a dramatic difference. Turn the air on, I hit it to 68 degrees and set it for 4 hours. So that means by midnight, it will turn back over to its standard temperature setting of 78 degrees. So if we have played our cards right, if we have done everything we are supposed to do, we make it through the night with air conditioning. I can tell you that if you don't make it through the night with air conditioning, you wake up at whatever time it might be, 5:30-ish, dripping in sweat. Because once that AC kicks off, that bedroom, maybe because it has walls around it, turns into an oven. and and then stumbling around at 5 or 5:30 in the morning trying to get all the windows back open again, shutting off all the breakers so that you're not messing up the solar panel system. You're turning everything off is a pain in the butt. There's no way you're going back to sleep after that. So we also have the solar banks, as I talked about, the Echo Flows and the All Powers, and Tom's BiPAP is set up on one of those, the All Powers actually. And then if I want to read or I need to do something on the computer, not that I have internet, but I want to do some writing or something, then I'll use one of the other power banks for that, and also for charging our phones and things along those lines. So we're trying to save that power just for the enjoyment of the AC while we're sleeping. So there you go. That was our whole day. We wake up the next day and we start all over again, hopefully having had a good night's sleep. If not, then trying to figure out what we could have done differently to make sure we did have a full good night's sleep. Um, that's a day in the life, and that is what it's like to live off grid. And doesn't matter. It's beautiful up there, and I love it, and I don't want to be anywhere else. Let me know if y'all have any questions, and I hope y'all have a great afternoon.